Welcome back, boys and girls, to the channel, and today we're starting a new series up. Now, MMA, it's fun to look at future matchups, press conferences, and news, but it's also fun in all sports to look back. We all know we like to look back at the bulls of the 1990s, back at Muhammad Ali of the 20th century. We like to look back and watch as these superstars took over their specific sport and put themselves and etched themselves in our memories and etched themselves in time as some of the greatest of their sport. And with the UFC and MMA in general in its infancy stages still compared to other sports, we can look back at some of the things that we have just seen that years from now we're going to look back on and remember as being some of the greatest moments in MMA history. And we're going to start today with the Staredown. In 2001, one of the most entertaining fighters in MMA history would make his debut for the Extreme Challenge on their 39th show. If you could recognize the young Ruthless, he would take little time making an impact in the MMA world.
Down. Robbie Lawler on top of him. And this fight is over. Robbie Lawler has ended Vitali's run.
And would be signed to the UFC in 2002 after 4 straight wins in the first round, all coming in 2001. With the UFC still growing, a superstar like this would be easily one of the most hot commodities on the planet. However, on the other side of the Canadian-American border, in 1989, Rory the Red King McDonald was born in Kelowna, British Columbia, and at 17, in his teenage years, he'd debut in the Extreme Fighting Championship.
16 years old! I do believe his future is so bright he might want to wear shades, boss.
Winning 10 straight in 5 years before making it to the UFC. Losing in his debut, Rory would win 5 straight fights, drawing himself comparisons to his idolized teammate George Rush St. Pierre.
I've heard him described as the next George St. Pierre, but I gotta be honest, with all due respect, he might have more potential than that.
3 years into Rory McDonald's short UFC career, he would fight Robbie Lawler, 11-year veteran of the UFC, which would earn Robbie Lawler his first ever shot at UFC Gold. In a fight that went much the way we all would have thought, the veteran of the UFC, Robbie Lawler, earned a split decision against the young and hungry Rory McDonald. On that November 16th in 2013, this started the year that led to one of the greatest rematches of all times. Let's start with Rory McDonald's bounce-back win over Damian Maia in a 3-round unanimous decision in February of 2014. Robbie Lawler, on the other hand, following the Rory win, would begin 2014 fighting Johnny Hendricks for a world title. The opportunity in that fight would slip him by in a 5-round unanimous decision, but the bounce-back would be nothing short of legendary. By the end of 2014, Lawler had defeated Ellenberger, Matt Brown, and would get his rematch with Johnny Hendricks. And while this was going on, Rory, following the Damian Maia win, would defeat Tyron Woodley, who would go on to be a future world champion in the division, and Rory would defeat Tarek Saffiedine in dominant fashion. By this time, with 2014 coming to a close, Rory and ruthless Robbie Lawler combined for 5 dominant wins. On the rankings, they were the 2 back-to-back at number 1 and number 2, and Lawler would be getting his rematch with Johnny Hendricks on the 6th of December.
The grind. These are hard shots by Lawler. He's sneaking him in here.
Lawler using that right hand, Joe.
He's hammering him with the
seconds remain in this fight. Elbows to the body. Just ground and pound by the challenger. 20 seconds. Lawler looking for the finish.
Vicious attack by
15
Lawler.
seconds.
Vicious shot to the body.
And another.
Hendricks is in trouble.
What a finish for Robbie Lawler. They go the distance again.
Lawler's still staring him down. That was intense.
In ruthless Robbie Lawler fashion, he picked up an insane intensity in the 4th and 5th rounds, stalking Hendricks for those time periods. By the end of that night, Lawler redeemed himself, earning not just the welterweight world title, but Fighter of the Year and Fight of the Year all in the same process. And from 2011 to 2014, the only worthy competitor, the only worthy contender that rose from the ashes, much like the now champion Robbie Lawler, was Rory the Red King McDonald. 8-1 since April of 2011, with his only loss coming to now champion Robbie Lawler to end 2013. The rematch made all the sense. And with that being said, the fight was set to co-headline one of the biggest cards in MMA history, with the fastest rising and soon-to-be biggest star of all time, Conor McGregor, as the main event. With the headline set and the less than stellar pre-fight hype for this one wrapped up, two men would step into the octagon and put on one of the best performances of all time. In the fight, we saw a back-and-forth bloodbath, with both guys having their moments, and arguably the loser winning most of the rounds if this fight were to go to decision. And by the end of that 4th round, we saw one of the most iconic moments in MMA history, the moment that I look back on when I think of one of the best fights of all time, with Rory and Robbie standing in the middle of the octagon after the bell for the round had gone, just staring into each other's souls. And who else but Robbie Lawler would come out in the next round, delivering shots to the face that would end up breaking Rory McDonald's nose, putting him backwards onto his back and covering up before the ref stepped in to stop the fight in one of the greatest fights in welterweight history. I'll let Joe Rogan tell it for me. And nonetheless, again, by the end of this year, Robbie Lawler would have won Fighter of the Year for back-to-back years, would have won Fight of the Year for back-to-back years, and would have kept his title throughout 2015. Now, this was probably one of the best rivalries from a one-fight perspective. They had two fights with Robbie Lawler winning. They've had two fights with Robbie Lawler winning both and ending that rivalry, but I would consider this combo a rivalry, making Robbie Lawler one of the greatest MMA talents of all time, one of the guys you look at that carried MMA from 2002 to now, getting his moments in fights, and you can't get a legend without a worthy challenger, and that's exactly what Rory McDonald was in this instant. Now picking up steam in Bellator, Rory's looking to write his own story with his own line of challengers. Douglas Lima is a good example of this, coming up for the finals of that welterweight tournament. But that concludes this I'll Look Back video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, remember to smash that like button. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you sub to the channel. Content comes every Tuesday and Thursday with the stream on the weekend. But thank you again so much for watching, and see y'all later.